1, 2, 3, 4.
Prior to the discovery of oil, the Middle East was an economically deprived region with very limited agricultural and pastoral economies. However, since its discovery and extraction in the first half of the 20th century, oil has provided a steady and steadily increasing source of revenue to the rulers of Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE, thus transforming the state's economies from agricultural to rentier economies. Today, a third of the global oil and about 16% of the world's natural gas comes from the West Asian countries. OPEC currently influences global oil prices by controlling its volume in the market. As a result, the GDP of these states has been increasing dramatically. The UAE, for example, has had a higher GDP than the UK since 1981. Moreover, this has promoted the economic modernization in the oil possessing countries in terms of infrastructure, oil and living conditions, as well as healthcare. In fact, West Asian countries have become more attractive for business and for tourism as several companies are entering their markets. However, despite its vast oil reserves, it is still considered a third world region owing to its high reliance on these oil revenues and because of certain political factors such as lack of democracy, corruption, cronyism, reluctance to the reforms, and other issues causing the detrimental dependency on a single commodity, which serves as an obstacle for its long-term economic development and prosperity.
Soft power is the ability to get others to want what you want. OPEC has the power to control market prices of oil. Influential members of the organization, such as Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and UAE, which are rich in oil reserves, use oil as a tool of soft power. Apart from earning huge amounts of money, integration into international markets, being a significant global supplier of a non-renewable and natural resource, and global neglect of the human rights violations in countries like Saudi Arabia are a few examples of the outcome of successfully using oil as a soft power.
The oil shortage brought about by the Ukraine war has made energy-rich West Asian countries extraordinarily important once again. The energy price spike triggered by the war lifted the Gulf states out of an almost decade-long economic slump that saw them cut spending and go into budget deficits as their economies shrank. Russia's invasion of its neighbor lifted the value of crude oil to an 8-year high. But it may be the last such upswing, owing to the changing attitudes towards energy consumption and oil being a non-renewable resource in itself. According to IMF reports, international oil companies and producing states have come to realize and recognize that alternative energy resources alongside greater efficiency are already running in demand. While Gulf producers like Saudi Arabia and the UAE are developing new industries in preparation for a post-oil era, they're not moving quickly enough to avoid running out of cash. In all of these West Asian countries, economic activity, fiscal revenue, export earnings, and foreign exchange are directly and indirectly dependent on oil production. In 2014, in fact, the share of oil revenue in total revenue ranged from 47% in Yemen to 94% in Iraq and averaged 77% across the group. As mentioned before, the reliance on oil is exceedingly dangerous for these economies.
Now the most common damage control method would be to diversify the economy so that it isn't propelled by a single extinguishable resource, right? But what about the countries which exist in a region which is otherwise so unyielding?
Well, cue capitalism.
As a solution to the scarcity of oil resources in an uncertain future, West Asian countries like Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and UAE have begun exploring alternate paths to keep up their international importance and economic growth. Let me take you through a few examples of these alternate paths. Football is not just a sport, it's a global emotion. The FIFA World Cup 2022, viewed by over 1.5 billion people, was held in Qatar after outbidding influential countries like the US, Japan, and South Korea back in 2010. State-owned oil company Saudi Aramco opened up to the world to sell 1.5% of the company. This move has immensely helped the company increase credibility and publicity in the international sphere. Saudi Arabia has also used this company to embed itself into the wildly popular motorsport Formula One. In addition to being F1's global energy partner since 2020, Saudi Aramco joined hands with Aston Martin Racing in 2022 as a strategic partner. UAE has invested huge amounts of money to amp up the facilities and the infrastructure of the Dubai airport and has led state-owned Emirates to become one of the best airlines in the world. A similar move can be observed with state-owned Qatar Airways, which won the Best Airlines Award for the 7th time in 2022. Both the Doha and Dubai airports have heavily invested in infrastructure, connectivity, and flyer services like comfortable sleeping areas and duty-free shopping facilities, such that it has both become major international transit hubs. The large number of people traveling from South Asia to Europe or North America and vice versa are hence forced to have layovers at these airports. All the money earned through oil exports are being diverted into these new efforts. More examples that are meant to boost tourism and gain international recognition are the Dubai Expo, a global event that lasts for about 180 days, and Saudi Arabia's $1 trillion city, a futuristic visionary that aims to be a zero-carbon city.
So we've gone through the various measures that West Asia is taking to pivot their revenue away from oil. In this section, I will highlight how Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE are throwing money in an attempt to buy soft power through their respective sovereign investment funds. State and private companies from Saudi Arabia have been boosting their outbound campaigns as investment becomes the country's favored tool for soft power in the world. The Public Investment Fund (PIF), the country's sovereign wealth fund, deployed $20.3 billion in 2022, up by 448.6% from a year earlier. Mohammed Al-Jadaan, the Saudi finance minister, said that the country was changing the way we provide development assistance and that they used to give direct grants and deposits without strings attached, and that they were changing that. Jio, Uber, Reliance, SoftBank, Russia, Brazil, the Nasdaq, and even India's NSE and BSE are all now directly or indirectly influenced by Saudi Arabia. Shifting to Qatar, we start to see more negative impacts of these sovereign investment funds, which I'll get into in a bit. Here, you can see some of Qatar's prime sectors for investments that are listed on their website: technology, media, financial institutions, real estate, infrastructure, and healthcare. However, one branch of the QIA we must focus on is their sports investments branch. They are a subsidiary of the Qatar Investment Authority and have been heavily involved in sports events overseas and bringing global sporting events to be hosted on their land, like the FIFA World Cup 2022, the F1 race at Lusail, and some MotoGP events too. Finally, we get to the United Arab Emirates, where their sovereign funds are primarily handled by two entities. They are the Abu Dhabi Investment Authority and the Investment Corporation of Dubai. The ADIA is the official sovereign funds controller. However, leaked documents have shown that the Abu Dhabi United Group, that owns majority stake in the City Group, is also under the purview of the ADIA. Other notable areas of interest include real estate, infrastructure, equities, both private and public, and fixed income assets like government and inflation-linked bonds in developed and emerging markets. According to their own website, 60 to 90% of their funds are allocated towards investments in North America and Europe. Arguably, this is a rare instance where a global south country has focused at economic efforts in the global north at this scale of investment. Now, the burning question: why is this a problem? Sovereign wealth funds from West Asia have been investing their oil money legally in teams and companies. However, these investments often provide little benefit beyond advertisement for state-owned projects. The modus operandi of these authorities is rife with corruption, bribery, and flouting of financial fair play rules. Qatar is a prime example of this, as they use money to buy soft power and influence. Around the time for the FIFA vote on who should host the 2022 World Cup, France and Qatar entered into numerous deals that benefited France and former French president, like the 2010 Airbus Qatar Airways deal, the Rafale jets purchased by Qatar, which was confirmed in 2015, and the Qatar sports investment into Paris Saint-Germain Football Club in 2012. And in return, France flipped their FIFA vote to Qatar. Such deals often go unnoticed by the public. The potential for coercion and the resulting threat to state sovereignty could create an artificial world order where West Asia's influence spreads across the globe. Hypothetical situation: if the Saudi PIF became the major stakeholder in Uber and used this position to lobby the US Congress for Saudi interests, it could undermine ethical international relations. As Qatar has shown, it is possible to purchase influence over a UNSC P5 country like France within a decade, making it essential for us to be vigilant about these transactions.